This is Joe Mason. I would like to share with you one of my favorite speeches ever, something I dig out and reread at least once a year to remind me of the importance of bringing dignity to all lives. Last night, honoring Dr. King on the anniversary of his birth, I watched a documentary on his assassination. I thought it was appropriate to share this speech the day after his birthday, as it was given by Robert Kennedy the day after Dr. King was killed. This is a time of shame and sorrow. It is not a day for politics. I have saved this one opportunity, my only event of today, to speak briefly to you about the mindless menace of violence in America, which again stains our land and every one of our lives. It is not the concern of any one race. The victims of violence are black and white, rich and poor, young and old, famous and unknown. They are, most important of all, human beings whom other human beings loved and needed. No one, no matter where he lives or what he does, can be certain who will suffer from some senseless act of bloodshed. And yet, it goes on and on and on in this country of ours. Why? What has violence ever accomplished? What has it ever created? No martyr's cause can ever be stilled by an assassin's bullet. No wrongs have ever been righted by riots or civil disorders. A sniper is only a coward, not a hero. And an uncontrolled, uncontrollable mob is only the voice of madness, not the voice of reason. Whenever any American's life is taken by another American unnecessarily, whether it is done in the name of the law or in defiance of the law, by one man or a gang, in cold blood or in passion, in an attack of violence or in response to violence, whenever we tear at the fabric of life which another man has painfully and clumsily woven for himself and his children, the whole nation is degraded. Among free men, said Abraham Lincoln, there can be no successful appeal from the ballot to the bullet, and those who take such appeal are sure to lose their cause and pay the costs. Yet, we seemingly tolerate a rising level of violence that ignores our common humanity and our claims to civilization alike. We calmly accept newspaper reports of civilian slaughter in far-off lands. We glorify killing on movie and television screens and call it entertainment. We make it easy for men of all shades of sanity to acquire whatever weapons and ammunition they desire. Too often we honor swagger and bluster and the wielders of force. Too often we excuse those who are willing to build their lives on the shattered dreams of others. Some Americans who preach nonviolence abroad fail to practice it here at home. Some who accuse others of inciting riots have by their very conduct invited them. Some look for scapegoats. Others look for conspiracies. But this much is clear. Violence breeds violence. Repression breeds retaliation, and only a cleansing of our whole society can remove this sickness from our soul. For there is another kind of violence, slower, but just as deadly, destructive as the shot or the bomb in the night. This is the violence of institutions, indifference and inaction and slow decay. This is the violence that afflicts the poor, that poisons relations between men because their skin has different colors. This is the slow destruction of a child by hunger, and schools without books, and homes without heat in the winter. This is the breaking of a man's spirit by denying him the chance to stand as a father and as a man among other men. And this, too, afflicts us all. I have not come here to propose a set of specific remedies, nor is there a single set. For a broad and adequate outline, we know what must be done. When you teach a man to hate and fear his brother, when you teach that he is a lesser man because of his color or his beliefs or the policies he pursues, when you teach that those who differ from you threaten your freedom or your job or your family, then you also learn to confront others not as fellow citizens but as enemies, to be met not with cooperation but with conquest, to be subjugated and mastered. We learn, at the last, to look to our brothers as aliens, men with whom we share a city but not community, men bound to us in common dwelling but not in common effort. We learn to share only a common fear, only a common desire to retreat from each other, only a common impulse to meet disagreement with force. For all this, there are no final answers. Yet, we know what we must do. It is to achieve true justice among our fellow citizens. The question is not what programs we should seek to enact. The question is whether we find in our own midst and in our own hearts that leadership of humane purpose that will recognize the terrible truths of our existence. We must admit the vanity of our false distinctions among men and learn to find our own advancement in the search for the advancement of others. We must admit in ourselves that our own children's future cannot be built on the misfortunes of others. We must recognize that this short life can neither be ennobled or enriched by hatred or revenge. Our lives on this planet are too short, and the work to be done too great to let this spirit flourish any longer in our land. Of course, we cannot vanquish it with a program, nor with a resolution. But we can perhaps remember, if only for a time, that those who live with us are our brothers, that they share with us the same short moment of life, that they seek, as do we, nothing but the chance to live out their lives in purpose and in happiness, winning what satisfaction and fulfillment they can. Surely, this bond of common faith, this bond of common goal, can begin to teach us something. Surely, we can learn, at least, to look at those around us as fellow men.
And surely we can begin to work a little harder, to bind up the wounds among us, and to become in our hearts brothers and countrymen once again. Thank you very much.
Robert F. Kennedy, April 5th, 1968. As a young boy in 1968, I was almost certain that 50 years later from then, all of these heartbreaking issues would be addressed. Now, almost 50 years later, I hang my head in disappointment and shame that they have not. I hope my son, 50 years from now, will have a different story to tell.